You know, we think of artificial intelligence as this pinnacle of logic. It's supposed to be purely data-driven, totally impartial. But what happens when these incredibly smart systems, the ones we're trusting with huge decisions, start producing results that are, well, deeply unfair? We're talking about real people getting hurt, from the courtroom to the hiring process. And it all points to this massive, dangerous blind spot in how we think about our own technology.
So that really brings us to the core mystery we're going to unravel today. How on earth can a tool that's built on nothing but pure logic and data end up being biased? I mean, it sounds like it shouldn't even be possible, right? Well, today we are going to crack that case wide open.
So let's just break down what this actually looks like in the real world. Imagine an AI reviewing loan applications. On the one hand, a totally qualified applicant puts in their info and boom, loan approved. That's how it should work. But then you have an equally qualified person, same credentials, same financial history, and they get denied. Same qualifications, but a completely different, life-altering outcome. And this isn't some random glitch. It's the result of hidden human biases being quietly baked right into the algorithm.
All right, let's get into it. Here's our roadmap. First, we're going to uncover where this problem starts, how AI basically becomes a mirror of our own society. Then, we're going to peek inside the mysterious black box of the algorithm itself. After that, we'll look at the real-world damage this causes, and we'll finish up on a more hopeful note, exploring how we can actually build a much fairer future for AI.
Okay, so our first big idea is a really fundamental one. AI systems aren't just born biased. Nope, they learn it. And the big question is, where do they learn it from? Well, they learn it from us. They end up acting like a giant, powerful mirror, reflecting all the patterns, inequalities, and frankly, the flaws that are already floating around in our world.
There's this classic old-school saying in computer science, garbage in, garbage out. And it's so simple, but it's everything here. It just means that the quality of what you get out of a system is completely dependent on the quality of what you put in. And this right here is the #1 culprit behind biased AI. If we feed an AI a ton of data that's already soaked in our own historical human biases, the AI is going to learn those biases as if they're facts. And then, you guessed it, it's going to spit out biased results. Let's look at a really famous example to see this in action. A few years back, Amazon decided to build an AI tool to help screen job applicants. And to teach it what a good candidate looked like, they fed it 10 years of their very own hiring data. I mean, it sounds logical, right? Train it on your past successes. But there was a huge hidden problem lurking inside that data. So what you're seeing here is a snapshot of what that historical data looked like. For years, the tech industry, and this company in particular, had overwhelmingly hired men for the big technical roles. The AI just looked at this pattern and taught itself a very simple but very wrong rule. Male candidates are better. It got so bad it started penalizing resumes that had the word women's on them, like captain of the women's chess club. The AI wasn't trying to be malicious. It was just being a fantastic student of the biased homework we gave it. And this brings us to a really important concept we'll call the mirror effect. The AI is literally holding up a mirror to our own history. And if that history is packed with things like gender inequality or racial prejudice, the AI doesn't just learn it, it amplifies it. It turns our past mistakes into new barriers for the future.
But you know, biased data is really only half the story. The problem gets a whole lot worse once that data goes inside the AI itself. So now we're going to venture inside what's known as the algorithmic black box.
So what in the world is an algorithmic black box? Well, think of it like this. Imagine you have a magic box. You put ingredients in one side, flour, eggs, sugar, and a fully baked cake comes out the other. You know the result is a cake, but you have no idea what recipe it used inside. For AI, this means that even the people who designed it often can't explain the exact step-by-step logic behind any single decision. And that makes it almost impossible to find and fix a hidden bias. And this is where things can get really dangerous, creating this vicious cycle, a feedback loop. Let's walk through it with predictive policing. It starts when an AI, trained on biased historical data, predicts more crime will happen in a specific neighborhood. So what happens? Police send more officers there. And because there are more police officers on the ground, they naturally make more arrests. And then, and this is the crazy part, that new arrest data gets fed back into the AI, which sees it as proof that its original prediction was right all along. The bias just keeps reinforcing itself, getting stronger and stronger with every single cycle. So far, we've been talking about data and algorithms, which can feel a little abstract. But I want to be really clear. This is not a theoretical problem. These biased decisions have severe, very real consequences for actual people. This is where the code hits the road, so to speak. The impact is it's incredibly widespread and deeply concerning. In our justice system, we've seen AI tools recommend harsher prison sentences for minority defendants. In policing, as we just saw, it can lead to the over-policing of entire communities. And in the world of hiring, AI can systematically filter out perfectly qualified candidates with disabilities just because their data doesn't fit the so-called norm that the AI was trained on.
And to make this really hit home, think about the story of a deaf applicant who was using an AI-powered interview platform called HireView. The AI was designed to analyze a person's spoken answers and facial cues, but it had no idea how to interpret her answers, which she gave using sign language. So she was unfairly penalized, not because of her skills or qualifications, but simply because the AI had a massive, built-in blind spot.
And the fallout just keeps spreading. On platforms like Facebook, algorithms have let advertisers create discriminatory job ads that could, for example, prevent older workers from ever even seeing an opportunity. And as we saw right at the beginning, biased AI in finance can mean a totally qualified person gets denied the loan they needed to buy a home or start a business, just locking in economic inequality.
Now, I know this can all sound pretty bleak, but the good news is that we are absolutely not powerless here. Recognizing the problem is the most important first step. So let's pivot and talk about the solution, how we can fight this invisible foe and start building better, fair AI systems for everyone.
The path forward really has to attack this problem from a bunch of different angles. First, we have to build better, much more representative data sets, ones that actually reflect the diversity of our world, not just one small slice of it. But technology alone is not going to cut it. We desperately need diverse development teams, because people with different backgrounds and lived experiences are way more likely to spot biases that others might completely miss. And finally, we need real accountability through strong ethical guidelines and regular audits, treating AI not like some magic box, but like any other powerful tool that has to be constantly checked to make sure it's fair.
I think the biggest takeaway here is that there's no magic wand for this. You can't just write a few more lines of code and fix bias. And that's because this isn't purely a technical problem, it's a deeply human one. The only way we're going to move forward is by combining smarter technology with diverse human oversight and a public that is aware of the risks and demands better.
And that really leaves us with one last pretty provocative thought. If the AI is just a mirror, and it's just showing us the patterns we've already created, well, to build a truly unbiased artificial intelligence, does that mean we first have to turn that mirror back on ourselves and finally confront the biases that have been hiding in our society all along? Something to think about.